What is going on, guys? Vinny Vega here, and we are mere hours away from the release of Battlefield Hardline. So I figured I'd go over some patch notes to kind of get you guys ready for the game, for those of you who are buying it tomorrow or at the midnight release tonight. So I will be going over the assault rifles, the shotguns, the subs, and also the 338 rounds on the sniper rifle, and also a little bit of class balancing as well. Some changes that were made from the cop side to the criminal side. You may have noticed that the time to kill during the beta was very fast compared to Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3, and this may have concerned a lot of people, and they have tweaked the balance to where all the weapons, including the sidearms, do have a slower time to kill. Not quite as slow as Battlefield 4, but it's a little bit more balanced. And after playing on the EA Access earlier this week, I gotta say that the balance does seem a little bit better, and the time to kill was actually pretty good compared to what it was in the beta. Now this is everything except for the sniper rifles, because the sniper rifles are working the way they are supposed to be. So let's get right into the assault rifles first. Now the RO933, this is something I was adamant about right at the beginning of the beta. You may have noticed that the vertical recoil was absolutely ridiculous on that thing. Even when you're trying to burst fire it was very hard to require your targets to have that follow-up shot. So they have reduced the vertical recoil on the gun, the visual recoil, and it's definitely a lot more manageable after using it during the EA Access, so this is a very good thing. And on top of that, they've also reduced the damage. And honestly, they didn't reduce it that much. I was still able to kill people very quickly with it, so this was a very good balance. They probably figured that if they're going to reduce the recoil, they didn't want it to be too OP, I guess you can say. So I think the balance on the RO933 is perfect now. Now moving on to the M416 and the M16A3, they've reduced the damage and they've also increased the vertical recoil. Now these guns were definitely a little bit OP during the beta. They were pretty much shooting like laser beams, and after shooting with them myself and getting killed by them, I would have to agree with this change. To say the least, anybody who's experienced a death by the M16 in Battlefield 3 were probably having nightmares about it after the beta ended. And I didn't get a chance to use it during the EA Access because I didn't buy the guns to try them out, but I will be trying them out during the release of the game. And I gotta say that I didn't see too many people using them, just here and there. Now moving on to shotguns, on the 870p Magnum, they've reduced, and the Spaz for that matter as well, they've reduced the one-shot kill range. You may have noticed that people were like more or less one-shotting people across the map. Not necessarily across the map, but it was a good amount of distance, and I've seen it for myself when I was using the 870. So this is definitely a good change, and the shotguns work just like they're supposed to. Supposed to one-shot kill in close quarters. There was a little bit of isolated incident that I've seen myself. If you look at this game clip right here, there's the guy that actually kills me. He's behind him, and he does not take any damage clearly from the shot after I kill his teammate. And I actually do shoot him, which in theory should have killed him, but he still takes me out. This could have been just an isolated incident, or it might have been a netcode issue. I mean, I know there's certain things they have to iron out, but certain changes they really couldn't do between the beta and the release of the game. And I'll get into that later. They also increased the vertical recoil on the 870p Magnum, which in my opinion for a pump action shotgun isn't a big deal. I mean, who cares if it has a lot of kick to it? I mean, shotguns that kick like a mule anyway, so is that really going to factor in when you really think about it? From what I could tell from the gameplay on the EA Access, it didn't make much of a difference. Now moving on to subs, they've actually improved the Uzi hip fire. You may have noticed that the Uzi was absolutely terrible when it comes to hip firing. So I'm definitely interested to see how this gun performs after launch of the game. Once again, this is something I didn't get a chance to use during the EA Access, even though it was fairly cheap to buy. However, I was able to use the P90. This also had a change as well. The hipfire spread and the ADS spread was increased a little bit. You may have noticed that it didn't do the most damage, but you're always able to get hit markers pretty much no matter what, whether you're firing from the hip or from the ADS. Now, after using it during the EA Access, it wasn't a huge change, and it's still a very usable option. So don't be afraid of using the P90 because it's still a beast weapon. And of course, the notorious 338 rounds on the sniper rifles. They weren't available on the Scout Elites, but for the AWN and the R700, they were available. And they were expensive as shit, but people were still using it like crazy. And they were able to take out vehicles, one-shot kill people from the chest up from ridiculous ranges. I believe it was up to 70 meters, something like that. So they've reduced the range against infantry to about 12 meters, which is generally the normal range for a one-shot kill for a sniper rifle. So I have a feeling that people will be using the straight pull more often when they intend on killing infantry. So this is definitely a good change. And they did reduce the range of the damage against vehicles as well. I mean, this was definitely very OP against helicopters especially. I mean, you'll still deal heavy damage, up to 80 damage against an attack chopper head on, but it's only up to about 20 meters. I know a lot of people are a little pissed about getting taken out in their chopper like almost instantly, like with 3 shots from ridiculous ranges, so this is definitely a good change. It will still deal heavy damage to vehicles, and this was its intended purpose, considering that the professional class no longer carries C4. Now, as far as class balancing goes, the G36C was now placed on the cop side when it was originally on the criminal side, and the M416 was now placed on the criminal side when it was originally on the cop side. Now, when you really think about it, the cops did have the M16 and the M416 originally, and this was a little bit overpowered compared to the operator class on the criminal side, so this is definitely a good change. Not to mention the M45 on the criminal side and the M45 on the cop side were swapped over as well. So this will balance things out as far as the mechanic class goes as well. Now, on the gadget side of things, you may have noticed that it took a very long time to pump out another med pack or an ammo box. They've actually reduced the cooldown time. You can't spam them quite as much as you could in Battlefield 4, but you can put down a med pack or ammo box when you need it. On the flip side of things, the breach charge, aka the C4, cannot be resupplied as quickly with the ammo box as it was, so hopefully we won't see as much spam when it comes to the breach charges. People will just lay them down on the road and resupply real quick, so this increased time will hopefully be significant enough to reduce the spam of the breach charges, especially when it comes to Hotwire. This was my only grievance in it, when people were constantly spamming breach charges on the road while you're driving by. Like I said earlier, there's only so many things they can change from the beta to the launch of the game. When Thad Sasser, the one who oversees everything that goes on in the multiplayer, was approached with this question, if the beta was released too close to the launch to introduce any real changes, he responded with this: there's some truth to that. One of the reasons for the beta to make sure the game is stable, and the more things you change after a beta, the more chances you have of introducing instability. And that's clearly fighting your own goal there. So it's not our intention to go out and change a whole bunch of code. But one of the safer things you can change is obviously data values and tuning. And that's where we focused our efforts. Things like weapon tuning, the class balance, the metagame, tuning the hacker game mode, things like that are really where we focused our efforts. So I'd like to know from you guys if you plan on buying the game, what you think of these changes, and have you played the EA Access and what you thought about it when you played it. I actually really enjoyed it, and at the end of the day, when it comes right down to it, if a game's fun to play, then go ahead and play it, right? Don't forget to rate this video, and I'll see you on the next one.